speaking of Heisman discussion, let's move to the Florida Gators next, where DJ Lagway took college football by storm last season, and obviously he was put into the role of starter at Florida. It felt like partly to save Billy Napier's job because his ceiling was objectively higher than Graham Mertz's, but also then Graham Mertz goes down with a season-ending injury, and Lagway's thrust into the spotlight. No matter kind of what the outcome was going to be, they go 8-5. And guys, this was a Florida team that in the preseason everybody had left for dead. I mean, the schedule was objectively gross. You couldn't have made a harder schedule in the college football video game if you had tried. And we all had Billy Napier getting fired maybe in the first 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, after the loss to Texas A&M at home, where they were just out physicaled up and down the field, we were on flight tracker duty, right? I mean, we were trying to figure out who on earth was going to be the next head coach in the Swamp. And lo and behold, Napier not only saves his job, but turns the ship around to where now Florida is fifth in our contenders ranking in arguably the deepest conference in America. They've got playoff hype. DJ Lagway has Heisman hype. Lance, make sense of all of this from me. Like, how impressed are you to see where Florida was and maybe now where they are? Are you buying the hype? Are you selling some of it? Where's your leaning on the Florida Gators?
I'm absolutely buying the hype. I think that Florida is one of the 10 to 15 best teams in the country now. What does that mean as far as their schedule is concerned? I know we'll get to their schedule more here in a minute, but the talent acquisition and the roster that Napier has built, he's really, dude, I really respect the fact that Napier has really just blocked out the noise from the outside world, stayed to his process. I mean, you've heard guys like Josh Payton and others that have been there to interview, that have interviewed Napier, and you'd say that you would never know that this team was struggling beforehand and had the record that they had beforehand when they went there last year. And that culture that he built there really shined through there halfway through the season. And obviously, the emergence of DJ Lagway, the emergence of Jaden Ball. I mean, dude, that might be the most freakish backfield in the entire country at 6'4", 240-pound Lagway and 6'1", 235 running back and Jaden Ball. Both of them have great feet, obviously. Lagway, too, played last year with a little bit of a hurt shoulder, a hurt hamstring. And what is he going to be like when he's 100% healthy? And I know a lot of people acted like that Ole Miss game last year when they went into the Swamp. I'm going to say the casuals acted like that was a bad loss as far as Ole Miss not being able to get into the playoff. But they acted like, oh, they lost to that 7-win Florida team, whatever. Dude, there wasn't a coach. I can promise you could poll coaches around the country. And if there's certain teams that they'd say that they absolutely want no part of on the road at their place on that given Saturday, that Florida bunch at the end of the year in the Swamp, when LSU went there and when Ole Miss went there, that Gator bunch was a problem. And a lot of those guys are returning. They've added more weapons overall. For Lagway around them, and 5-star Dallas Wilson. I mean, dude, I'm definitely buying this Florida hype and drinking the Gatorade with this bunch. And it's just, a lot of people keep pointing to their schedule, and I keep using Tyler on our show. He says this a lot too. Those teams that everybody's talking about that Florida has to play that's really tough, those teams also have to deal with this Florida bunch too. The reason that their schedule is tougher, the reason that someone like Texas has a tougher schedule this year is they have to go to the Swamp and deal with this Florida bunch. So yeah, I'm definitely buying the hype.
I think all of that is extremely astute, right? When Florida beat LSU at home last year, I felt like kind of what you said about the casuals when Florida beat Ole Miss. I was more, oh man, well that's just Brian Kelly, right? Like that's kind of just what he does. This LSU team, they were due for one of these. They escaped South Carolina. There's Brian Kelly's head scratching loss. But then as that game marinated and we got to our preview before the Ole Miss week, I can't remember how many of us picked Florida to beat Ole Miss, but I think it was a pretty uniform discussion that, you know what, we picked Tennessee to lose to Florida in the Swamp 2 years ago. This feels very similar, where a playoff dream is going to die. And you're right. Florida stood up to the test, and they do that at home supremely well. Trey, they get their entire offensive line back. Listening to SEC Media Days today, the players, the coaches, the media, everybody is so excited to watch Florida play in the trenches, which is a dangerous place to start when you're talking about a championship contending team. The offensive line blocking in front of Jaden Baugh, who's not going to dance around you, mind you. Like Lance said, 6'1", 230 plus pounds. That guy's running through your face. You've got 4 or 5 starters back on the offensive line. You have a very talented wide receiving core. Eugene Wilson III is back. They bring in J. Michael Sturdivant from UCLA. And then Lance mentioned the true freshman 5-star Dallas Wilson. It's kind of a who's who catching the ball for DJ Lagway. I'm excited to see how that relationship develops throughout the year. But then you flip it around on the defensive line as well. And they were talking to Caleb Banks, defensive tackle for the Gators. And he said going against this offensive line every day in practice, they will break down their moves with each other afterwards. Hey, you ran this stunt. How did you guys go about preparing and communicating to block this as you recognize something at the line of scrimmage, and vice versa? That tight-knit group in the locker room, that's when it gets to late October and early November and the bullets are flying and you've got to go on the road or you host a Texas or a Tennessee at home. That's what you need to lean on in order to win these big games.
Yeah, absolutely. And they really found their identity last year on that defensive line. 19 sacks in the last 3 games, that 3-game win streak against Florida, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. The defense, we never questioned the talent, right? But at the beginning of the year last year, they were really struggling to find what they were good at, the identity they wanted to have. Were they a pass rushing team? Were they a just stop the run with numbers team? They were really struggling to find that. And in that last 4-game streak to end the year, they only gave up 13 points per game. So something clicked, something changed. It was 30.1 the rest of the year against Power 4 competition. So something's clicked, something's changed. You mentioned Caleb Banks, who's probably going to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft next year. The edges are really scary as well. Tariq Sapp and George Gums combined for 12 sacks last year. So it's going to be an athletic, freakishly talented defensive line. The linebacker core and the secondary return a bunch of talent from last year as well. It feels like a Florida team on the defensive side of the ball like we used to see under previous coaches like Urban Meyer. It's just athletes everywhere that are going to make freakish plays all over the field, and you're just going to be left wondering how to move the ball against them at times this year. They got to find the consistency. They got to make sure that they show up with the same intensity they did at the end of the year last year from the word go. But if they can do that, it's going to be a defense nobody wants to face all year long.
Yeah, and like Trey, you guys are hitting the nail on the head. We know that to win in this league, to win in the SEC, you have to be really, really good along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And Florida allowed on the offensive side last year, they allowed 19 less sacks in 2024 than they allowed in 2023. And they're returning, like you said, 4 of those 5 guys. And then you mentioned the numbers there, the 19 sacks in their last 4 games. They had 38 tackles for a lot. They were just living behind the line of scrimmage and forcing negative plays and forcing drive-killing type plays along that defensive front. And I heard them mention him at SEC Media Days, and like obviously Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks like get all the pub, and they should, as good as those 2 guys are. We talk about the talent acquisition at Florida. LJ McCray was the nation's top defensive line recruit last year coming out of high school, and he played quite a bit last year. He was the number 3 overall recruit. So that's a guy that's going to be in his second year in the SEC, getting bigger, stronger, learning the defensive line position, learning his position even more and better technique. The line of scrimmage on both sides. I know that Lagway and Ball get all the pub, but the line of scrimmage play on both sides of the ball is going to be nasty for this Gator bunch.
And we don't think Lagway is going to get randomly subbed out this year, right? We don't think we're going to do that again.
It's strange, man. Hope not. Better not.
Better not. Golly, the amount of times that it's like, okay, I feel like Florida might, they didn't score, but there were some positive signs. And here comes Graham Mertz again. I guess we're going to do this all season long.
Yeah.
Talk to me about their schedule, guys. It ramps up pretty quickly. There's not much of a carpool lane here to get us into the season, right? You get your warm up against Long Island, but then South Florida, who is as talented as they've maybe ever been, certainly expect Florida to win that game. But Alex Golish has some dudes on that team. At LSU, at Miami, Texas, and at Texas A&M to finish the first half. It is a murderer's row once again. So, start with this. What do you expect their record to be through the first 6 games, and kind of give me the state of the union based off of that?
I think if they're 4-2, like they could be better, but I think if they're 4-2 after that stretch, because I do think that if Florida and Oklahoma more than anybody else in the entire country going into the season, of anybody that's like remotely a contender to make the playoffs, if Florida were to go 9-3, they absolutely should be considered for the college football playoff with the schedule that they're playing. It's just ridiculous. So if they can be 4-2 after this stretch, after those first 6 games, with games at LSU, at Miami, at Texas A&M, and then Texas at home, I think that they've got a real shot to finish the season like 9-3 or possibly even better, to be a team that can make the college football playoff.
Yeah, you want to at least split those 4 games. And I think that's a very attainable goal. When you look at the home road splits this year, I think the schedule's obviously the teams that they're playing are the same as last year, but I like the home road splits better this year than they were last year. Going to Miami doesn't really scare me as a road environment. That's going to be a talented team, but there's probably going to be more Gator fans in that stadium than Miami Hurricane fans. Going to LSU is obviously going to be difficult, and it's already slated as a night game too. So, if the defensive line though is cooking, and we'll talk about LSU next with their offensive line and the transition that they're going to have, that could be an opportunity to really muddle up that game in week 3. But yeah, I think splitting those 2 would really give you a firm foundation, and finding a way to split the Texas teams as well would give you a really firm foundation for the rest of the year. Then you're playing Georgia and Jacksonville. You go to an Ole Miss team that I'm not personally really sure what we're going to get out of Ole Miss this year, and then host a Tennessee team that is living post-Nico life. So there's a real opportunity to build some momentum at the end of the schedule if you can just find a way to split those first 4.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing, too. I think their bye weeks come at perfect times, too. Like, after that stretch where they have to go to LSU and to Miami, they get that bye week before they play Texas, and then they get their bye week, of course, that they have every year before they play in the cocktail party against the Dogs. I think those are very opportunistic bye weeks for them.
Yeah, no doubt. It gives them a chance to kind of recenter, rest, recover. We know there's going to be attrition this year, and get ready to play 2 absolutely pivotal games in their schedule. If they can get the mojo flowing in that first half, outside of Georgia, I'm not sure who stops them in that second half of the season. And that's when you could see Florida kind of rise back to prominence and make a run at the college football playoff. Florida Gators are a team that I'm both excited to watch and nervous that they're on our team's schedule as well. But, that's just part of the fun of playing in the SEC.